What's one question, Jay, that I haven't asked that you wished I would have asked?
That's a great question. I might start using that one. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like we've covered all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's I think the only question that I'll give it to you. Actually, the only question that I always ask, because I love this question, is, and I'll actually ask you because I'm curious. What does work-life balance mean to you? Number one, because it means something different to everybody. And how has that changed for you over different seasons of business and life? I'll answer it too if you want, but I'm asking you.
Work-life balance. I think for me, I think that work-life balance for me is that when I can go and turn off and just go hang out with someone and not think about work. Or if I can go and just go home, take the laptop. I'm planning on maybe doing some work in the evening, but you know what? Start cooking and I'm enjoying myself cooking, and then we get in the car and go drive or take the dog for a walk or whatever. And then I get up the next morning. I don't feel guilty that I didn't do 3 of the 49 tasks that I need to get done that evening. And not be critical of myself or beat myself up about it or think I'm lazy, and just I think that's for me is work-life balance.
I love that. I think what I always say is it's different for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say ignore the system, but have a system. So you got to find what works for you in your season of life. And I think it changes.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a 19-year-old kid trying to run a startup business, not making much money at all, I didn't have a lot of other obligations, and I enjoyed the work.
Totally.
So like for me to have my laptop on for 16 hours a day plus sometimes, that was fine in that season. That was not overbearing for me at that time. But now I've got 5 kids, and that's not okay anymore. Not if I, but there are some days still, or even some weeks where I'll go to my wife and go, hey, I got this stuff going on. I'm gonna have to deal with it. I mean, there's been some of that lately, and I just need some extra time. And she's like, all right. I think that's that communication for me, especially when it comes to a spouse or children, like communication of understanding what's going on. But I think it just changes in different seasons. Right now, the business entrepreneurial messaging around this subject to me is so one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You got Gary Vaynerchuk on one side, who I love. Gary V's got some great content out there.
Yeah, me too.
But it's the nonstop hustle. If you're not working this many hours as a day, then you're not doing it right. And then you have the other side over here, where if you're not taking a 3-hour nap and do a yoga every afternoon, then you're not doing it right. And I don't think either one of those is true. And I actually think Gary would agree with this too, in that you've got to find your own place in the midst of what that looks like for you. And it's okay for that to change over time.
A lesson I learned. Yes, the season is a great word that you use there. The lesson I learned, I was a member of a nonprofit for a long time. There were guys in there that were very active all the time, and I was new. And so I became as active as possible because they're active. But what I didn't realize was they were at the advanced stage, or they've been in business for years. They had all their systems worked out. They could afford to take the time off and go and invest and serve other people at that point. But having a new business, I needed to not be comparing myself to them and wanting to emulate them. I needed to be focused on my responsibilities and do what I can. So the comparison was getting me off balance. And I think, and the seasonality of where you are in that life cycle of a business, you have a life cycle as an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, I think comparison is the thief of joy, and Instagram is a liar. So, just be careful out there. Get into where you need to be as an entrepreneur. There are seasons, especially in the early days, where you're going to have to work a lot to make it work. You just are. But you have to have a target of where you're going to go. So like for me, one of the big things for me several years ago this is many years ago now, actually, but I had gotten to a point where I really had not taken much real vacation at all. Like it just wasn't a thing for me. And as my kids were starting to grow up, this is not healthy. I couldn't leave my phone. I couldn't leave my laptop somewhere for a day even. And so I set a goal one year, and I said, all right, by this date, I want to be able to take a whole week off and not bring my laptop with me. What needs to be true in order for that to happen? And so I think that question is a really powerful one when you visualize that future story. And for me, back then it was 1 week. Now this year, although we'll see what happens with this crisis, I'm gonna do it anyway. This year, my goal is 1 month. I want to be able to leave the business for what I would consider a full life cycle of 30 days and not email, not pick up my phone. And I don't want it to just survive without me. I want it to thrive without me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I ask along the way is what needs to be true today in order for that to be true at X date in the future. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you have that vision of where you're going, and then every day you're asking that question, am I stepping towards it or am I stepping away from it? That makes all the difference. And it's really changed things for me.
Scott Adams has a great quote. It's systems are for winners. And what you're talking about, what has to be in place is a system to deliver that. Good goal. But if you're not